So let's. What I wanted to do is show you a few records. Now I could have picked out probably like 50 of my favorite pianists, but I just wanted to show you a couple records, kind of get your reaction to them. So let's do that real quick. I think it's be kind of fun.
Oh
Amazing
yes,
Powell.
yes, great album.
So you said you were pretty influenced by him. Of course, he's one of the classic beboppers, right?
Yes.
Bud Powell. Yeah, he's one of my favorites. That's a great album. This is like really that's classic Blue Note. Blue Note. Or do you collect records? Do you collect records yourself?
I do. Well, you see all my mosaic sets right there?
Oh,
I have like a ton of them. And
wow.
I have a bunch of records. I stopped collecting vinyl records because it was getting really expensive. So
Yeah.
so now and also time. I mean, space consuming. So now I just collect CDs. That's
I know the feeling. I've been collecting since I was a kid, and I never really stopped. And I've got my house is overrun.
Yeah. Let me talk about time. Wait. So I remember correctly. I think it's Philly Joe and Sam Jones on the recording.
Yeah, you got Bud Powell, Sam Jones, Philly Joe Jones, drums. Yeah.
Yeah, and they play songs like Monopoly and John's Abbey. Just really beautiful. And that period was like late 50s, I think.
Yeah, I think this is like.
And that whole series, I think it's like the Amazing Bud Powell Volume 3, or I don't know, Volume 4 or something like, I don't remember, one of those. That whole series of Blue Notes when Bud was there just were absolutely amazing. And something about his playing is very free. I think that's like he's, if you listen to it really closely, he's always making mistakes. And I think it's because he's always trying to stretch out and like go for something he's never done before. Everything he's done, everything he was doing was, I think, on the spot, and that's kind of the goal that I wanted to aspire to. You know, never repeating yourself, always coming up with a new thing, even if it makes you mistakes. Because even Bud Powell is human. I think it's a very different point of view than, say, like Oscar Peterson, who like never made a mistake.
Yeah, that guy. I'll tell you what. I'll show a record of him in a minute. Amazing. The next one I thought would be interesting for that kind of same Blue Note. That was the Horace Silver. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got on this one Billy Mitchell, Junior Cook, Eugene Taylor, Louis Hayes on drums. So another really cool album.
Yeah, and so that's one of, if I remember right, there's a there's a bunch of quintet stuff there, but there's also like one or two trio stuff there too. But anyway, that album, Horace Silver is like Benny Golson, one of my favorite jazz composers, and similarly, I think it's because he was able to find jazz music that was accessible to the public. You know, really catchy tunes, like Sister Sadie's on there, really catchy tune. The same V2 Dance, really catchy tune. But and also his front line is incredible. Blue Mitchell and Junior Cook, come on. That's like the ultimate hard bop, quintet stuff. I think my next album is a quintet album.
Okay.
So it has a tenor and trumpet, and so it has a lot of kind of like the Horace sensibilities coming up. So
wow.
I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah.
That's awesome. That comes out next year.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah,
also with Corey. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we might as well go ahead and hit Bill Evans. Now, this is one of the reissue, or actually archival releases that was released on Resonance Records, which you may or may not know about this one, but just Bill Evans in general, what characteristics make him, he's, first of all, to me, he seems like he's one of the ones that first kind of incorporated a lot of classical type things in there. And sometimes it's hard to pick up with him the melody of the tune. Sometimes he's playing kind of, I don't know, how do you explain that, where he's playing the melody, but it's not as readily noticeable.
Yeah. So he's obscuring the melody. I think it's a thing that he did to kind of manipulate the song in the way that he would want it. To me, Bill Evans, when I think of him, the first thing I think about is the sound. They say that he can get his sound from anywhere, even the dinky, like out of tune upright piano, or even a keyboard or something. And so that sound is beautiful. There's like kind of something crystal clear about his sound, but it's also nice and warm. And that's kind of what I was trying to get at with the ballad on my album. Just something really clear, but also something that feels like you're being hugged. And I don't know that record that you just showed me.
Yeah, it's a live recording.
Yeah.
But it's one of those resonance, this is actually Elemental record release. It's one of those record store day. Usually every year there's a couple of record store day releases of his. You can get them on CD as well. But this one right here is live in Copenhagen in '64. And pretty cool album. So I like to collect all those Bill Evans, when they put out all these cool archival finds, they're really, you really hear, especially in a live setting. And I read a couple of books about him, and I was even reading where he, back in his day, I don't know how it is. I was going to talk to you a bit about touring, because I know you just were out playing. But they said that he would go, a lot of these bars back then, jazz clubs, they didn't take care of their pianos very well. So if you showed up, you might have a bad key or whatever, and you pretty much were stuck with it. And they said he would just kind of play around it. Like, okay, that's a bad key there. I'm just not going to. So I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah. He was just an immaculate technician. And there's not many piano players where you can tell that it's done right away, and he's one of the few that you can.
Right.
And going back to what you said about classical influences, I hear a lot of stuff. Obviously he studied a lot of Bach, like a lot of chorale work. He studied a lot of like romantic harmony, like Chopin, Beethoven, and he also studied a lot of Impressionism, like Ravel and Debussy, and then also kind of like the 20th century stuff like Stravinsky. Just like he kind of just had the complete picture of everything. My student Jaden told me that Bill could just play through like an orchestral. So for example, so this is like a reduction. This is Dvorak. He was able to read this, right, like this whole score on the piano. He can just like read freaking everything and just be able to play it.
It's incredible.
So he was just an incredible reader. He was constantly reading. My teacher Andy Laverne was one of Bill's only students, and he just said that there was mounds of sheet music everywhere on his room, like on his piano, and just like on the chairs or everywhere. He was always reading.
Yeah, and you could say that that he's a genre almost unto himself because he's so unique. He's almost his own genre. Yeah,
he invented something completely new, and he also respected the tradition quite a bit. There's a lot of early stuff where you can really hear his kind of main influences in the past, like Bud Powell, Sonny Clark, Lenny Tristano, and all those people he studied deeply, and you can kind of tell, like from some of those early records, like New Jazz Conceptions, or some of his early sideman work, like with Cannonball Adderley or Art Farmer, just really, really, really beautiful traditional stuff before he even moved on to what we know of today as Bill Evans.
Right, yeah, what incredible catalog. All right, so we got to get Oscar Peterson because this is one of the albums that I wasn't familiar with, and I don't know. There's a piano player from Russia, Leningrad, called Vladimir Shafranov, who I had on the channel. Actually, I'll be talking to him tomorrow again. But he turned me on to this record, and this record here is unbelievable. And actually, he plays the Bill Evans. The first song on there is Waltz for Debbie, and it's really intense. So this, Oscar Peterson, when you hear that guy play this, I don't know how someone plays, like the speed with which he plays and the changing of the tempos that are so, he could just do it like, I don't know how you explain that. But so what's your thoughts on Oscar Peterson when you reflect on
Oscar
him?
is a brilliant musician. One of my first loves in jazz piano, and still continues to be one of the biggest influences of almost all jazz pianists now. There's just something extremely swinging about his playing, and also something extremely accurate. Like we were talking about, like Bud making mistakes, and talking about Oscar making no mistakes. Oscar makes no mistakes. I've never heard him make a mistake, and part of that is his classical training. So I read his biography. He's able to play every Chopin etude, which is some of the hardest stuff that like all the the pro piano players try to play these days. He has incredible facility, and also not many people know this, but he's actually an incredibly gifted accompanist. He played some really great, obviously he played with Ella, but he did some really great stuff, like on the Verve label with Lester Young, Ben Webster, Billie Holiday, like just like everybody. Like he was able to comp for everybody, and it always sounded great.
Yeah, very prolific. I mean, look at all the different settings. Of course, his trio, very famous, but he's played with, so many different people in so many different settings and live settings in the studio. I mean, his discography is insane.
Insane. Like Stefan Grappelli. I think he played. I'm trying to remember. I think he played with Isaac Stern. Like just like random people. Just like, yeah, and like he played in big band settings, he played with orchestras. He played with a small group. He comped for everybody. He could do it all. With really perfect musician. Yeah.
Yeah. He played with the harmonica player.
Toots.
Yeah, he played. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very. Yeah. So he just a brilliant musician for sure.
And if I remember right about that album, that's the classic trio, right? That's Ray Brown and Ed Thigpen.
Yeah, that's let me just verify there. Yeah, Ray Brown, Thigpen, yep.
And that's the one where they play a really crazy arrangement for "Yours Is My Heart Alone."
Yep, the last song on the album. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oscar was a big influence on Cedar Walton, I think, and part of it was the arrangements that he did, and that actually goes back to another person who I didn't even talk about. One of my other heroes, Ahmad Jamal.
Because I was going to pull one of his records, and
I think Oscar is also kind of a like studied a lot of Ahmad too. He played a lot of the tunes that Ahmad played, so I wouldn't be surprised.
I did want to ask you about Monk, because
Yes.
Thelonious Monk always has to, you always got to talk about him. But explain a little bit of the difference, because he has what people refer to as angular type playing on the piano versus linear, where he spaces these notes out and he's got this percussion. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think about Monk almost like a drummer. Like he's not even really sometimes thinking about the notes. He's thinking about the effect of the notes. Like ba ba ba, and like the angular stuff. Like he's not. I mean, Monk was a really deep harmonic theorist. He really understood Western harmony that we understand it today. You can see this from the songs that he makes. Like they're all like completely correct, and also the melodies are completely correct. But what makes Monk is that he'll play a note, like you said, very angular, which means on a piece of paper you can actually see the notes jumping up and down instead of like a scale, which would just go up or down, like in small steps. And that's one of the defining characteristics of his playing and his compositions. Also his comping. His comping is very much like a drummer. It's like ba 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 ba, like sometimes low, sometimes high. Another person who kind of explored the whole range of the piano, both dynamics and register.
Yeah, and I read one of his biographies that they said some people had a hard time playing with him when he was comping, because he had such a unique style that sometimes it made it difficult. And kind of Monk had his own way of wanting to make things sound, and I guess sometimes that kind of clashed with some people in the studio. I don't know, how often that happened, but I think it did happen sometimes.
Yeah, he's a very strong player to play with, and so you can't be bullied by him, and in some ways you have to just really trust yourself and play what you want to play. There's a great recording of Coltrane and Monk playing at Carnegie Hall which I think was released kind of recently, right? Like sometime in the last decade.
Yeah.
And they play all kinds of all of his tunes, and Coltrane just basically has to bulldoze through Monk's comping. And I think it really helped him because I think it really helped him set the scene for Coltrane's quartet, which is kind of like his style of just like bulldozing through the rhythm section.
Yeah. I got a couple of two modern pianists that I'd like to hear just your thoughts on. Of course, Keith Jarrett.
Yes.
So very unique. Kind of, to me, he's got his own sound as well, and amazing about just coming up with stuff like compositions like in the moment, and the incredible improvisation. Have you listened to a lot of Keith Jarrett?
Yeah, I forgot. I keep forgetting.
There's so
Keith
many.
was also one of my early heroes. I put on what is it, Tokyo '96, like kind of every day for a year during college. Just
listen to that all the time.
Listen to the whole thing. Just Keith, similar to Bud Powell in some ways, because he would be completely fearless and just try to go somewhere. And Keith also makes quite a bit of mistakes, but you can't really tell because he's Keith. It just sounds like everything he's doing is completely off the dome, never rehearsed, and that's another one of those really, really great musicians I like. The Survivor Suite is with the American Quartet, which is my favorite configuration of Keith's bands.
Got Dewey Redman.
Yeah.
Of course, Charlie Hayden.
Yes.
Unbelievable, and then Paul Motian.
Yes, just fantastic, and just very. Like there's only I think there's only 2 tracks on it. It's like part 1 and part 2 or something.
Yeah, so you got the Survivor Suite. It's just side A, side B. It's beginning and conclusion. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so if I remember correctly, I haven't heard that album in a long time, but there's a lot of variety. It's not just one kind of sound the whole time. It's many different sounds. It's like an orchestra, like symphony. Like where like things are like getting big, things are getting dark, things are getting light, small,
dynamics.
Everything. And that's another thing I really strive for is true variety. Like in my album, all the songs are varied in some way or another, and just to make kind of like a square meal.
Right. Yeah. Right. A little bit of flavor, a little different. Yeah.
Yeah.
And last but not least, as far as modern players, there's so many more that I could bring up, but another one of my favorites, who's I would say a modern player, Brad Mehldau. Now, of course, he's on a ton of different records with a lot of different people, and this Live in Tokyo is pretty cool. But just not necessarily talking about this album, but just him in general. What are your thoughts there? I mean, he's...
So that's actually one of my favorite Brad albums, and that's another person I was really spinning during college. I must have listened to that album like 1,000 times. There's some really great moments in there, like when he quotes Linus and Lucy in Monk's Dream. His 20-minute version of Paranoid Android, and my favorite song on there is Someone to Watch Over Me. It's like a really beautiful kind of nostalgic way of playing it, which I really like. And so for him, another person that I really admire, because he was really into the blending of jazz and classical and popular music. Right, a lot of the music in there is popular music, like Nick Drake, Radiohead.
Comes with great arrangements on all this.
Yeah, and it's just really beautiful how he was able to. And maybe he wasn't the one to start it, but he was able to take popular songs and make them into the jazz genre. I think that's one of his greatest innovations.
He's done the Beatles.
Yeah.
That's a cool. And then he could just do the straight ahead jazz stuff.
Yeah, just a complete musician. I would love to meet him one day.
So tell us about, you just got your, did you go on a full tour, or so you said you were overseas? Can you tell us a little bit about that? And maybe before we close out, what's coming up for you?
Yeah. I was playing in Asia. I think I did two countries this time. So I was playing Taiwan. I played there for 6 nights, and then I played in Singapore for a night. And I played them with my good buddies, Will Lyle, a great bass player from New York, Hansen Arif, a great drummer from Indonesia, and Tim Lin, who's I mentioned before, a great sax player, also in New York now. And we just played tunes from either my upcoming album or Will's old album, but yeah, just like a kind of classic quartet setting. Really nice to play with them.
How do you like touring? And tell us a little bit about that. To me, the piano guy seems to me he's got the easiest because you don't have to lug around instruments or have your instrument flown in, but you have to play on what you get when you get there, right? So tell us a little bit about that, about touring.
It's a wild card. You know, sometimes you'll go to a piano, the pedal doesn't work, or the keys are stuck, or it's out of tune, or it's not a real piano. They actually lied, and it's like a tiny keyboard. You just have to deal with it. You know, that's the nature of the business. And international touring for an independent musician is really, really not profitable. I basically don't think I made any money from it because all the money just went to the hotel.
Stay in.
Yeah, but it was a great time. I really enjoyed hanging out with some of my favorite musical friends.
And then, as far as like playing local gigs where you live at, is there a local jazz scene there? Do you have any jazz jams, anything like that? Open jams?
Yeah, there's a couple of open jams. My friend just made a new open jam, like that's happening once every 2 weeks. My other friend Tim used to run a weekly jam session for a long time, like 4 or 5 years, in San Jose. And there's all kinds of jams happening in San Francisco and so on. In terms of where I play, these days I normally play for a swing band. So these are playing with actual dancers, which is kind of cool. And typically not so much straight ahead music like you would hear on my album, but more like dance music, like, you know.
Kind of the old swing stuff?
Yeah, like Count Basie, that kind of stuff.
Ellington?
Yeah.
Cool. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, I really like that stuff too. So that's you know, I get to practice my stride. It's all good stuff.
So did you play in a lot of open jams like come around that area? In other words, like when you were learning, was that very important for you to be able to sit in and play with other people?
Yes.
I know we have a here in Birmingham, Alabama, we have a really cool open jazz jam every Tuesday evening, and it's held by a trumpet player in the Alabama Jazz Hall of Fame, Jose Carr, and he hosts the jazz jam here, and it's interesting because you could see, you know, I've been going for about 3 years now, pretty regularly, and you can see how these younger musicians are growing, and they don't sound anything like they did 3 years ago. They've gotten so much better. So any thoughts on that, the importance of the jazz jam and becoming a good jazz musician?
Yeah, I think playing with people better than you is the best way to learn, because these people will both inspire you and also tell you things that you should watch out for. And so in a jam session, that's often the case. You know, when I first joined playing jazz, you know, I actually went to a bunch of jam sessions but didn't play them because I was so scared of it, and I was like sweating and shaking, and you know, I didn't really want to embarrass myself. And then I think one person I talked to about it afterwards, this is before I even started playing in the jam session, they said, you know, you shouldn't be so scared. You know, everybody here is kind of accepting, and they understand. They'll put you in a place where you can succeed and make music. Nobody's gonna just like say, oh, this person sucks, and just like throw away their instruments and walk off.
Right.
Yeah.
Not gonna throw the cymbal off at you.
Yeah, they're not. I mean, maybe I don't even know if that story about Bird is true or not.
True.
But
it's a good one.
But yeah, I think it's one of the best ways to learn. Also, one of the best ways to meet musical friends. So my greatest musical friends I've all met through jam sessions. Yeah, and just learning who's in the community and who plays what is, and just like being able to talk to people. You know, afterwards, after the jam session, I go and talk to some piano players. Hey, what chord are you playing? What's that? What's this? You know, what's the chord changes going into the bridge? like, who are you checking out these days? And just really simple questions really help my growth.
Yeah, it's in getting to know Jose, we did a documentary on him. When he runs a jam session, if somebody's new, he's very nice about it, but he'll let you know, if you're not hitting on it, he'll be like, "Hey man, you need to go back and practice, learn the melody, because you're not even playing anything," and or playing too long, having some jazz etiquette at the jazz jam. So it's like, man, you just took 5 choruses. He done said the same thing 5 times, So you get up there, say what you want to say, and get off and let somebody else get up and play, that kind of thing. Learning that jazz etiquette type thing, to where you're not, taking up the whole jam session. So.
Yeah, it's really important. Just not being a jerk, understanding what your weaknesses are, and also understanding what you can do better in. Being able to play in a group is nothing like playing at home. Nothing.
Right.
Because you actually have to actively work instead of just like work on things you've done before.
Cool. Yeah. Well, if you're ever around the Birmingham area, you got to come and visit Tuesday night and go to the jam session. It's a lot of fun. They have a lot of great players there. And Jose, he runs it really well, but he's also, make sure everything's run like it's supposed to be. With the guys that he grew up with, and it's kind of funny because he's pretty nice about it. He'll say something to you because the guys I came up with, he goes, one of those guys would come up, he just took the trumpet out of the guy's hand right in the middle of the thing. He's like, "Dude, you don't practice on my stage," and we get like in front of everybody. Wow. And they thought that was kind of like, well, if he comes back next week or comes back again, that means he's serious about it. He's not going to that kind of. I mean, it might be a little harsh, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think in that scenario, I mean, depending on how egregious his behavior was, probably it was okay. It's fine. Yeah. I would love to go visit. Whenever I go out of town, that's one of the first things I do. I go to the jam sessions just to meet the locals. Get to hear the music a little bit and like talk to people. I think it's really fun.
Yeah. Well, so we gotta definitely when you make your way across here, you got to stop for sure. So tell us what you have coming up. What about playing live, or what other projects? You said you have a new album coming out.
Yeah. So first, the new album, I recorded that with kind of a completely different band than this one. So on trumpet, I have Randy Brecker, and on sax, I have Bob Shepard, and then on bass, I have Mike Richmond, and drums, I have Adam Nussbaum. So just like kind of like a very, very different group of people, and the music there is even more original heavy. So I wrote 6 originals and I arranged 2 standards.
Oh, cool.
But it's going to be really great. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Nice. I'll definitely be reviewing that one. When that one comes out, we'll have you back on and we'll talk about that. And I really enjoyed having this conversation with you and just talking about jazz. It's really fun to, insightful to hear what you have to say about it. So I really appreciate you coming on here.
Yeah, and then the other thing I'm working on is I'm learning how to write music for film these days.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So I started taking a class on that, and with a guy from Nashville, Michael Whitaker, and every week we just go through go to a new genre. Like this week we're doing a horror genre, and so he gives us like a blank scene from a movie and says, "Okay, write something for it."
So and AI hasn't taken over that yet?
Well, it's really. Okay, so that's the other thing, and maybe you don't know this, but I actually work in AI. That's my software job.
It is. So what?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be a whole nother episode to have.
We can talk about that
AI.
next time.
Yeah, I'd love it. I'd love to have you on to talk just all about that, because that's a whole nother discussion we can get into. But to me, the AI, it seems like the first thing that it's going to threaten would be soundtrack stuff. That's just my opinion, but anyway,
it's going to be a little difficult. The short answer is it won't do it anytime soon because there's so much like copyright kind of stuff involved. But even then, like it's hard for it to actually react to the movies properly.
That's true. That's true.
So it's going to be a little hard. But I think the other things like soundtracks that aren't reactive to films, like they don't really care about like what's happening on the screen. That stuff might get awkward.
Video games.
Video games is kind of something similar. Yeah. Like I think a lot of a lot of it nowadays is reactive too. So I think it might be fine. Yeah, I'm not too worried about AI taking over music anytime soon. But we can talk about that later.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, I appreciate it, Charles. Thank you for coming on the channel, and we'll talk again soon. I'm gonna go ahead and stop this.